unanimous on the USL show rankings. The only unanimous team is Rhode Island FC in third. And it was an overwhelming third place for the fans as well, where well over half of the people who filled out the form said that Rhode Island was going to finish in third. This expansion team made it to the finals in year one, where they eventually do fall to Colorado Springs. But did young Icarus fly too close to the sun, or will they come crashing back down to earth in year two? John, who they gain, who they lose?
Well, your boy Steven Turnbull, he's out. Morris Duggan out on loan. Kind of the only big losses for this team, who also brought in Maxi Rodriguez. Have you heard of him? On the wingback spots, we've got Danny Rovira and Aldair Sanchez on either side. And then one to watch, Hugo Bacharach in the center back spot.
So obviously, Ryan, this is a team that came so close to being the most successful expansion team since Sacramento Republic, but just fell short. What are you kind of expecting from last year? Do you think we can get playoff Rhode Island all year long, or is there just something about this team that just seems like a playoff kind of team?
Yeah, it was really interesting of how the season went for Rhode Island last year. I mean, you open the season with just one win in your first 14 games. You would see like most teams would be hitting the panic button on in that season. But what was one thing that they were consistently good at was getting draws. They had 15 on the regular season that year, and they turned it around in the second half of the season. They had two separate occasions where they had a 3-game winning streak, and it carried that momentum into the postseason. I felt like this was very much a team that once they kind of got their feet underneath them, that they knew what they were doing within the league, that it really turned around the form. And I think ourselves as a show and as the viewers ranking them third in the Eastern Conference is giving them that respect that the team rightfully earned and deserved by the time they got to the end of the regular season and playoffs from last year.
So we have a chat. We have a question in the chat, and I think it's wonderful to answer already in terms of this, where you're looking at the midfield of this team and a fan favorite, a Clay Holstad, who for my money, the best striker of a ball in the USL Championship. Every single ball he seems to kick comes off nice and clean right onto the post, never goes in. And so just like, how do you leave a guy like Clay Holstad out? Do you say that he takes over Ybarra's spot, or is Maxey just that far ahead?
Well, I mean, I think this is the thing when you look at really all of the top three. Louisville has about 8 wingbacks that would be starters across the league. The Charleston midfield, like, how does Chris Allen go to the bench? Ultimately, there's going to be a ton of squad rotation here. Like, you're going to see really 4 midfielders for Rhode Island, I would say. Like, Joe Brito is probably a super sub at the end of the game. But Harivo, Mark Ibarra, Maxi, and Holstad are going to all see a ton of time. It really depends on the matchup. Like in certain games, you're going to want that combination of Haribo and Maxi Rodriguez almost doing a dual number 10 thing when you're getting into the final third. In other matches, you want something a little bit more defensive. You're going to get Holstad and Ibarra in there with pick your poison with the third player. That's a luxury that Rhode Island has, that they can afford to say, okay, whoever we need to start is going to start. Moreover, Holstad is good enough to like play right center back in case there's an injury. He's going to get minutes there. That's the beauty of the way this club is constructed right now.
So, Ryan, when you look up top for us, our last question was, how do you replace a Golden Boot winner for Charleston? Meanwhile, you have a former Golden Boot winner in Rhode Island FC who you probably aren't going to even start because you have a guy in Noah Fuson who you just do not leave on the bench, being the golden assister for the league last year. And JJ Williams was just a little bit better out the gates. Do you think we see an Albert Dikwa return to form kind of similar to what we saw from Pittsburgh? Or do you just see him as being the super sub kind of guy?
I think for Rhode Island, you're going to have to look at just whichever players like ride the hot foot for most of the season and just kind of find that momentum for throughout the entire part of the year. Momentum was what carried this Rhode Island team into the postseason and into their run to the USL Cup final, where I feel like any three of those front players that we've mentioned so far could very well be the one leading the team in goal contributions for the season this year. So it really should just be whoever is getting hot at the correct time.
John, I want to toss this question over to you because this is a fun league-wide question from our good friend Nicholas Murray. JJ Williams might be the most underrated forward in the league. And before you answer this, I will say Rhode Island FC, JJ, is vastly different than Birmingham, Tulsa, Phoenix, and even Tampa Bay, JJ. It just feels like he has transformed into a different kind of player up north. But is that player one of the most underrated ones in the league?
I think when JJ Williams is in form, there maybe isn't a more complete number 9 in the USL. Not only is it the goal scoring, but it's the hold up play, the way that he contests those duels on the end of long restarts. We saw him as a transitional player as well throughout the postseason, and kind of during that like end of year hot streak he went under, where he kept making those like swooping runs into the channels, picking up play and just barreling down on guys. I think he's almost had a double-digit assist season in Tampa Bay, if I'm remembering correctly. He kind of can just do it all and makes it look effortless. Like if he's clicking from the jump for this team, that's going to be a force to reckon with.
Final thoughts on this team before we move on to the next one?
If Rhode Island finished first, I would not be surprised.
Nor would I. This is a good team. And going from the back to the front, we are in this 5-3-2 where we have Koke Vegas in the back, and going from left to right, we have Quizera, Bacharich.
Bacharach. Hard. Yeah.
Thank you. Bacharach. Yao, Stoneman, and Adarce, Harivo, Yabara, and Rodriguez making up the midfield. And up top, Noah Fuson and JJ Williams. One thing I do want to throw out there, if something were to happen to Koke, I don't think there's many more backup goalkeepers you would want than Jackson Lee. I think he is an absolute stud. And I would not be shocked if he is a GK1 within the next year in the USL. He is so good. I think that he is well on his way. That if Koke were to go down again this year for some reason, you are more than happy to see Jackson Lee in your net.